And you mentioned data, and I know you've been doing some really interesting data-driven work regarding employee retention and attrition. Love to hear what you've been doing, what you're able to share with listeners, and what you've been able to discover.
Yeah, so we are indeed very passionate about data, and not just for the sake of it, but really drive the right conversations. And during COVID, we were running well-being surveys on a regular basis. I mean, not only at OLX, but also at process group companies, engagement data. And then we use that definitely to define the actions and to pivot where we needed, or to understand where the issues are, but also to start cross-checking it with other data. So for example, looking at the well-being, looking at the engagement data, looking at attrition, looking at exit interviews. So taking that all picture together and then have conversation around where do we have problems. That's, for example, what drove us to align on some career frameworks in the organization, as we saw that there is a question around internal career mobility or career enhancement. So we used it as an opportunity to say, okay, let's bring some clarity there. Another example, as I mentioned, was the hybrid ways of working, that we also based the principles, the guidelines on the data that we gathered. So it's sometimes in kind of ongoing things. I mean, we have a monthly dashboard that where we combine different data points around people, and obviously we also have live dashboards where at any point of time any HRBP or leader can go in and look at the data and understand what's happening right now from all dimensions in their organization. And we're still in the journey. We're absolutely in the journey. We are still not, and I would say at where I would like us to be from a data point of view. As people data is all about the business, it's not about HR, and we need to get more sophisticated also in linking it with customer data at some point, and also use it more for the right diversity and inclusion decisions and so on. So we're still in the journey, but I definitely see a much more shift towards let's have a data-driven conversation rather than an opinion. So rather than we think that that's the problem, but what the data tells us. And I'm very glad that I see definitely a very good shift in behavior and also in the acceptance of the leaders to have data-driven conversation.
Yeah, and I know you're obviously at the forefront of leading that drive. And what'd be interesting, I think, again for listeners maybe, Shlomit, is to hear from you as a chief people officer. How important is data to you in your day-to-day work? It's very, very difficult for me to imagine not using data. Let's put it this way, because clearly when you make decisions, you use a lot of intuition, or like you refer to your past experience or what you believe based on what you heard is the right decision. At the same time, wherever you can use data, it's good to have the data in hand. There are always going to be decisions where you're not going to have all the facts or all the data that you need in order to make the decision, but at least it gives you some orientation, or it's a base for conversation, or it's a base for asking deeper questions about what is actually the underlying problem, what actually the root causes of what we are seeing, or what the data tells us. So I personally love data, and again, not just for the sake of data, but when there is a problem, I'm always interested, what the data tells me, and try to connect as much as possible between different data points. It's not always easy because, again, not all the data points are connected, and that's also something that we're still in the journey, connecting between the data points, kind of creating this one data lake. But you can actually, what I learned is that it's very surprising how much data you already have that you're not always tapping into, not always leveraging. So it's extremely important for me, and it's extremely important to create an environment also in the organization where people are curious by looking at data.
In this series, we will be speaking to a range of senior leaders who are pushing a data-driven and digital HR agenda. Make sure that you subscribe via your podcast app of choice and also via our YouTube channel for free and regular interviews with the digital HR leaders of the future.